Movies, Devil Wears Prada and others sensationalize what marketing is, but it's not necessarily the reality of marketing, especially if you're in a product company.
How can I transition into B2B?
Human behavior is very, very similar when it comes to marketing. History was transferred from person to person was through storytelling.
How can marketing actually enable sales at the end of the day?
All B2B customers are not the same. There are certain B2B go-to-markets where they have all the decision power that responsible for billions of dollars worth of the market. The creative population has to evolve just like they evolved when it went from physical ads on billboards and magazines to digital.
Hey there, welcome to Marketing Mavericks with IndieFolio. Today we have Shonodeep Modak with us, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at Schneider Electric. Shonodeep has an extensive experience where he's worked with some of the biggest brands you can think of. We unpack his journey from being an engineer to a CMO and also extract insights for young marketers as well as creative founders. Thanks a lot for your time and welcome to the podcast, Shonodeep.
Really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Super excited to chat with you. A lot of marketeers in India are wanting to be in your shoes one day, I'm assuming, be leading a global brand, work on multiple geographies, and really, push themselves. So my first question to you is just to kind of set some context around, what is the CMO's job look like in a multi-billion-dollar company where there are thousands of marketers working? So can you tell us a little bit about what that feels like?
Yeah, I will say there is no day that is the same like the other. And each opportunity also has its challenges each time, which is great because we have a very global company, different cultures to deal with, different customer types. So it's quite exciting every day.
It's become much better with the Gen Z generation in India as well. But before that, it was a thumb rule that you first do engineering in India and then figure out, what you want to do in life because parents were pretty strict. It was interesting to see you also had an engineering actually, and then you transitioned into marketing. I'm sure a lot of people who are tuned in right now may see themselves in that same boat that maybe they've been forced to do engineering or they thought they like engineering, they did it. And now they want to change gears. So can you take us back to your time, when you were in college? When is it that you decided that, engineering is not for me, I want to kind of make a career in marketing?
Yeah, no, it's great. Great question. And to all of the engineers out there, you can be exceptional marketers. And I'll tell you why, and I'll reflect back on my own journey. So I did chemical engineering primarily to keep the options open if I wanted to go to med school or I wanted to go to engineering and have the technical foundation. That was something that was really important that I realized when I was looking at colleges. But during the engineering program that I was in, I had the opportunity to do a technical sales engineering role as an internship. And that got me out on the field to meet with customers and sell on value and basically help engineer a calculation of what opportunities we would have to upgrade, in this case, power plants to new technologies and what that would mean in terms of ROI and financials, as well as the techno-economic capability of the solution. So that was a super inspiring sort of moment for me where I was like, you know what? I can actually turn my engineering technical knowledge into selling in commercial applications, which to me, being in front of a customer, now my personal interest was very, very exciting. So, and then of course, my background was I like to do art. I like to do a lot of drawing and paintings and that sort of thing. And this was a way of expressing myself because you have to create the opportunity and show how the product works. And that was a lot of, call it artistic angles to how you do that. So early in my career, I said, all right, I'm going to go seek roles where I can do sales and marketing, but from a technical angle. And so that got me in the roles that I'm in today. So large B2B and B2C companies that are more technology companies. So I've worked in Exxon, GE, and now Schneider that are all in that space. So it gave me a lot of opportunity for growth and also the ability to pivot into marketing, but also be very, very highly valued as a marketer, because I'm not just a classical marketer speaking about websites and search and impressions and advertising. I'm also talking about the products in the industry and how we can play the role and the function to help drive growth. So that's why I would encourage a lot of engineers out there who are like, well, I'm not really feeling the going into a plant, designing, unit operations all day long. I actually want to pivot and use my engineering background into something that can be more frontline facing. And so we welcome, especially in our company, we welcome engineers, especially the aptitude and acumen that they bring to help us be successful marketers.
Fantastic. I think to be very good at marketing and sales, you need to know the product well and people well, or your customers. And I think that's what you said, that you bring the best of both, being a marketer plus an engineer. I want to, however, touch upon this. So when I go to, let's say, folks in their 11th or 12th grade and ask them, what do you think about marketing? It's conventionally, they think it's ads and, working with celebrities and stuff like that. And then the moment they get serious and they start looking into what's marketing, they realize, okay, I need to know strategy and business and math and, ROI and technology today increasingly. So it really confuses people. Is marketing for the creative brain or is it for the strategic brain? Do you have an answer?
Yeah. So obviously movies, Devil Wears Prada and others sensationalize what marketing is. And you can see all of these people and actors that are in these creative studios that are trying to come up with this next big idea. So that unfortunately, that's there, but it's not necessarily the reality of marketing, especially if you're in a product company. It's a huge responsibility as a marketer. One of the key responsibilities is that we connect quarter to quarter and longer term business growth than, say, one particular sort of customer, one particular sort of industry segment. And that is a huge responsibility because it gives us the ability to basically look beyond the near term and help provide the future pathways for the companies to grow. And our ability to understand the customer's needs and position the company better is where a marketer can truly differentiate himself or herself.
Awesome. I always tell, Indiefolio, we are a network of creative people. And I always tell folks in our network who complain about marketers that I was like, remember that once the ad goes live for you, you're jumping on the next one. They have to really prove that it worked and they have to really understand and learn what to do next. So it's just the 10% of their work is advertising. But there's a huge chunk of things which happens behind which we don't even know. So I think you've articulated that pretty well. I wanted to understand two things from you, right? One is, how can I transition into B2B? And, is B2, how can we actually leverage storytelling in B2B and make it fun? Like, is it useful rather to make B2B fun? Because at the end of the day, you're talking to a human being. So I wanted you to kind of unpack B2B for us.
Yeah, no, it's great questions. First and foremost, human behavior is very, very similar when it comes to marketing. We are all creatures of emotion and logic, and there is an anthropology that's inherent about us and how we love the story, and how as 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds growing up and our parents read to us stories, that our brains are wired. And that's how in many cases history was transferred, from person to person, was through storytelling. So it couldn't be more and more important because we're pre-wired, we're predisposed. And if you think about the B2B consumer, what I keep telling my teams is that they're expecting an Amazon experience. They're expecting an Apple experience. They are on their phone with this sort of UI UX and this sort of ease and simplicity of doing business that has been figured out on the B2C side. And the more you can do it on the B2B side is a place where they're expecting that. And if you can meet them at their expectations and exceed their expectations, you have a great shot at being able to convert. And it's more than just a brochure and collateral, especially now with digital, and even more so with AI and agentic AI and SaaS offerings. And most hardware now comes with software. So the continuity of the experience goes well beyond that purchase. So for us, on the B2B side, and by the way, we have in Schneider and in the other companies I worked in, I've also have a strong B2C business that's multi-billion dollars. So I never privilege or say that B2B is any better or worse, because we have to have strong marketers on both sides. Now, some of the conversion points are a little bit different between the two, and then of course how you engage is going to be different in terms of what channels you go at. But the overall journey in terms of that awareness to consideration to conversion is generally the same thing. And it's a matter of making sure that you're understanding the behavioral points around that. And so I would say that it's hugely valuable to, again, going back to the research side, going back to the engineering side, to understand the logic and how decisions are made. And then you go ahead and try to make the experience work when you're building out your marketing actions and activations.
I want to touch upon the decision piece you just mentioned, right? Like when it comes to conversion, usually in B2C, you are taking a decision, and sometimes there is an impulse buy, sometimes you're trying to signal something to society, etc., etc. In B2B, it's a committee which decides, if you want to go ahead with something or not. And that's where the argument which I usually face, especially when I'm working with a lot of B2B orgs trying to sell them marketing, is, at the end of the day, I get it. I'm going to look in a certain way. I'm going to make somebody feel in a certain way. But if my price point, my relationship, if my, technical details don't match what the customer wants, which my sales team will do, there's no merit in marketing. So, you've been, I'm sure, at these multi-million, billion-dollar deals at the company over several years. You've been in some huge companies. Can you try and kind of break this myth, or maybe give your perspective as to how can marketing actually enable sales at the end of the day?
Yeah. So first we have to start with that all B2B customers are not the same. There are certain B2B go-to-markets where it's a highly specified market, and there's a few customers that have all the decision power that responsible for the billions of dollars worth of the market. In those sort of situations, really it's about sales enablement and how you make sure that the sales team have all the right marketing tools to be able to go and influence the customer. So that's a unique approach when you have few customers that control a lot of the market and it's highly specified. So that's one type of prescribed market. Then you have, call it the medium level of prescription, where you might not be known. So you might be known in one area of the space, but you may not be known in another area based on the diversity of your product line. So there you would need to be able to provide both the awareness building so that you're in the consideration set, so that then you can even get the phone call to say, yes, we want to have the bid, or we want you to provide your specifications for it. And you have to make sure that as a marketer too, all of the information that a customer can even gather is in the right simplicity and ease of access. So think about your product catalog, all your product features, how it's communicated on the web. Do you have all the photos available? Do you have differentiated photos that show the value prop? Do you have other things in there that make somebody be like, I didn't know that this product is very unique. And even though my spec is this, I actually really need this. All of those points are key in terms of the influencing piece and can surround the entire customer. So that's kind of the mid-level of specification. Then you've got this whole channel called diffuse. That is customers where it's not a big committee, where it's essentially small decisions that kind of lead up to the bigger conversion points. And those are customers that need to just get information passed to them. That could be a webinar they attend. It could be an event that they attend. It could be digital sort of advertising touch points. And then basically being able to create new journeys of being able to influence the customer. So hugely important for us to make sure we're understanding that there's marketing can influence at different levels based on the customer, call it segment types that we have to influence.
Got it. Yeah, actually, I think the answer here is it's super nuanced, and I think you really need to understand how the buyer journey behaves is, from what I understand from you right now. Now I want to just move to the last part of the podcast, which is a few questions around, creative advertising with respect to AI. We are a network at Indiefolio of hundreds and thousands of founders of creative studios as well as independent professionals. And I think there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of doubt people have when what the future is going to look like. I think it was somewhere here 2 years ago, and with VO3 coming in, it's somewhere here. And I think there's so much happening. You are kind of thinking, okay, I know I need to embrace it for sure. I think we are beyond that conversation that do you need to or not. Like, you have to, otherwise you're not going to be able to be relevant anymore. But the question now arises, I think, in a few fundamental areas, right? One part which is scaring people is specialization is going away, is what is happening. Because as creative people, you spend 15 years being the best black and white photographer, or you spend 10 years writing horror scripts, or you're somebody who's very good in a certain treatment or a style in animation and design. And that's going away now, right? And creative people are just being forced to become business guys, become marketing guys, and then your taste is what's going to matter. I wanted to ask, as somebody who's probably commissioned so much work to agencies as to creative people, do you feel that's the case? Will you value problem solution more than the actual craft because now it's just being prompted?
No, I think the creative population has to evolve, just like they evolved when it went from physical ads on billboards and magazines to digital, right? And all of a sudden you had to go from a static image to and visuals to dynamic animations and ways to express the value of a product that comes to life in a very different way. So there's no difference that I say is before, other than the continued evolution of what's expected from the evolution of anybody, all of our roles have to evolve. So you have to stay on top. Now you have a fantastic tool that allows you to do concepting with a customer or client at a much more rapid pace, being able to provide multiple concepts at once with much less effort. So you can put, in my view, a lot more time and effort on creativity and less time on actually the development of the creative and the effort to actually produce it. You can now go and say, hey, I've got this one idea here, but here are 10 more ideas that I have. Oh, you don't like that? Let me come back to you in 5 seconds with a new way of showing it. Does this look more interesting or better? And so for the people that are on the ground doing that work, I think there's a huge opportunity to be able to continue to evolve and be able to provide that fast, rapid sort of ability. And then, of course, as these tools continue to advance, to be on top of that game, so that we're making sure that we're using the agencies that are best adept at being able to help us. For example, when AI starts to now interpret visuals, and that's going to be part of your content that they're searching from. Right now, it's a lot of it's text on your website. In the future, it's going to be searching images too, and looking at how they're descriptive, or how they're providing education, or that sort of thing, and how that sets you apart from your competition. Who's going to jump on that first? Who's the agency that's going to do that first? And make sure that they've learned about how search is and how those other things work, so that we can be better advised. Because it's no longer about, I like this image. Can they use synthetic testing, data testing with customers, and synthetic customer set, for example? There's a lot of things that they're going to have to advance on. And to be very honest, I'm very, I'll say this. I'm pretty blunt when I say that agencies had better evolve. Otherwise, I don't need them for press releases, blogs, that sort of thing. I need them for their minds and their skills, their relationships, and also how they evolve with the time, because I have to do the same thing.
Before, I conclude the podcast, I wanted a parting thought from you, which can be around, if I'm a young marketer watching this, I want to, let's say, be in your shoes one day. What's the next 1 year? What should be the next 1 year for me, right? What should I double down on? What should I focus on in terms of skills, in terms of mindset, to maybe, become a CMO one day?
Yeah. I would say focus on capability, focus on where you will be able to really struggle and grow, and not necessarily where it's easy, because where it's easy, you don't get the right experience and stress just call it stress and tension that truly grows you early in your career. If I look back, a lot of my biggest growth opportunities have been when things have been super difficult, didn't think I could take on the challenge, was where I had everything against me. And then that perseverance and to be able to learn through that is what will make you, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. There's so much truth into that. And that in of itself can set you significantly apart than the person that's kind of just coasted through and just done job to job and said they've gotten a bigger responsibility, but they haven't actually shown where they've truly endured through a challenge is really where you can be differentiated. And then, of course, it's just the ability to realize that once you understand the depth and the expertise, you generally probably in that room have the ability to expose that and be able to influence and not just be on the back seat. Especially when you're younger, it's so easy to be the quiet and silent one and say, you know what, I'm the inexperienced one. My views, I'm nervous about getting my views out. But in many cases, the leaders I'm looking for ideas. It's not just, hey, Shonodeep, we're going to present to you the weather and you need to come up with the idea of why that weather occurred and what we should do about the weather. That's not the value add. And I think that in itself would be another key point around how young marketers, young people entering the workforce can differentiate. That doesn't even matter for marketing. That's everywhere in every role that you take on is to be able to stand out. Obviously, when you're grounded on the data and on the information to be able to do that. So long answer, but those are the things that I think are very important to be successful.
No, I think very, very well put, some golden advice from you. And yeah, this marks the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you had fun.
Really appreciate it. Appreciate you having me.
Awesome, man. For everybody who's tuned in, thank you so much. If you'd like to hear another marketing leader soon, please like, share, and subscribe. Bye-bye.